Have you ever experienced what they call the uncanny valley of language fluency?
Oh, that is such a frustrating place to be.
Right. It's this incredibly common phenomenon where, you've memorized all the vocabulary, you've mastered these really complex grammar structures, and on paper, your English is just, it's flawless.
But then you actually try to use it.
Exactly. You
Yeah.
walk into a crowded pub in London or like a coffee shop in New York, and you try to have a natural interaction, and something just feels kind of off.
Yeah, you can almost see it in the native speaker's eyes.
You can.
Yeah.
You aren't making technical errors, but the interaction feels rigid? It's like you're speaking a textbook, not a culture.
Or it's basically the difference between knowing the data of a language and knowing the music of it.
The music of it. I like that.
Yeah, when you hit that uncanny valley, what you're really experiencing is conversational friction. Because the visible, testable grammar rules, they only get you so far.
Right. They're just the foundation.
Exactly. The reality of daily communication is entirely governed by this hidden curriculum of unwritten social scripts. And if you don't know the script, you inadvertently create friction. I mean, no matter how perfect your verb conjugation is.
Which is exactly what we are focusing on for you today. Welcome to the deep dive.
Glad to be here.
We know you're well past the point of just trying to pass a written exam, right? You want to navigate everyday life seamlessly.
Seamlessly, yeah. Without overthinking every single word.
Exactly. You want to understand the psychological and, I guess, cultural mechanics behind sounding approachable and completely natural in an English-speaking space. So today, we're going to unpack the underlying mechanisms of everyday interactions.
There's so much to unpack there, honestly.
There really is. We're looking at the hidden weight of greetings, the strategic function of small talk, and these specific conversational shock absorbers that native speakers use to just navigate social spaces without causing a collision.
And to really understand this, I mean, we have to stop looking at everyday phrases as literal exchanges of information and start looking at them as social tools.
Social tools. Okay, give me an example.
Well, take greetings. Every interaction starts with a greeting, but the greeting isn't actually about saying hello.
It's not.
No, it's about demonstrating that you understand the shared rhythm of the environment.
Ah, right. And that temporal rhythm is surprisingly strict in English. Most language learners know the basics, like good morning is strictly before noon.
Right.
And good afternoon runs from 12 until about 6, and then good evening kind of takes over once it gets dark.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the materials we are analyzing today point out this massive pragmatic trap that catches highly proficient speakers off guard all the time.
Oh, the good night trap.
The good night trap. It is a classic example of how literal translation just completely fails you in a social context.
It really does, because think about the scenario, right? You arrive at a dinner party. It's, say, 8:30 at night.
It's pitch black outside.
Right, pitch black. You walk through the door, and your brain logically categorizes the environment as night.
Makes perfect sense.
So you greet the host with good night. To a non-native speaker, that is perfectly logical. But to a native speaker, you have just committed this totally bizarre social violation.
Yeah, because in English, good night is not a description of the time of day. It's a termination signal.
A termination signal.
Yeah, it's strictly a farewell. When you walk into a party and say good night, you are essentially signaling to the host, I have arrived, and I am immediately terminating this interaction to go to sleep.
Which is obviously not what you mean to say.
Exactly. You only deploy that phrase when you are physically walking out the door to go home or getting into bed. Using it as a greeting just completely disrupts the social sequencing.
That makes perfect sense when you view it as a functional boundary, rather than a literal phrase.
Right.
But if we're talking about phrases that are completely divorced from their literal meaning, we have to talk about the how are you protocol.
Oh boy. Yes. The ultimate social friction point for anyone learning English.
I hear this frustration constantly. People ask, why are English speakers so fake? They ask how I am, but they don't actually want to know.
Yeah, there we go.
Like, if I'm having a genuinely terrible day, my basement flooded, I missed my train, my dog is sick, and a barista asks, how are you? My instinct is to give a real answer.
Right, a truthful answer.
But the linguistic data we're looking at insists that you absolutely must stick to a positive or neutral script, like, I'm fine, thank you, or I'm good, or at worst, not bad. Why are we forced into this superficiality?
Well, it really helps to stop thinking of how are you as an inquiry and start thinking of it as a digital handshake protocol between two computers.
The digital handshake. Okay.
Yeah, in sociology, this is actually known as phatic communion. The purpose of the phrase isn't to exchange data about your psychological state.
Yeah.
Its purpose is social grooming.
Social grooming, that sounds kind of primal.
It is, kind of. It's a mutually agreed upon ritual that essentially says, I acknowledge your presence and I am not a threat.
So the cashier at the grocery store isn't interviewing me about my life. They're just initiating the handshake.
Precisely. If you unload your negative, completely real problems onto that cashier, you aren't being authentic. You're actually breaking the social contract.
Oh, wow. Never thought about it like that.
Yeah, because you're forcing emotional labor onto someone who hasn't consented to it. You know, they aren't prepared to offer therapy in that moment.
So you save the genuine negative answers for your close inner circle.
Exactly. For the public sphere, you just complete the handshake. And the most critical part of that handshake is the return ping.
Right. The "and you," or "how about you?"
Yes. If you just say, I'm good, and let the conversation drop, you have basically absorbed the other person's polite energy without reciprocating.
You left them hanging.
You did. Returning the question is what completes the circuit. It demonstrates that you recognize their humanity as well.
Okay, so once that initial circuit is complete, the dynamic changes a bit.
Right.
You've acknowledged each other. But now you have to actually coexist in a shared physical or social space.
Which is where the real navigation begins.
Right. You're moving through a crowded room, you're making requests, you're inevitably going to impose on someone. And this requires a very specific set of tools to mitigate that imposition.
Because English culture places a massive emphasis on negative politeness.
Negative politeness, what does that mean exactly?
It basically means the desire not to be imposed upon. Your language has to constantly reassure people that you respect their autonomy and their personal space.
Which brings us to the mitigators, please and thank you.
The classics.
Yeah. Adding please to a request, even something as simple as like pass the salt, is just non-negotiable if you want to soften the demand.
Absolutely.
But the response to gratitude is where the cultural nuances really start to shift. Traditionally, the response to thank you is, you're welcome.
Right, the textbook answer.
But our research highlights how ubiquitous no problem has become. And I always assumed no problem was just a sloppy, overly casual habit of younger generations.
A lot of people think that.
Yeah. I thought it bordered on disrespectful in a professional setting.
That is a very common misinterpretation, actually. No problem isn't a degradation of manners at all. It's an evolution of psychological reassurance.
Psychological reassurance, how so?
Well, think about the underlying implication of you're welcome. It subtly implies, I did you a favor, you owe me gratitude, and I accept it.
Huh. It acknowledges a transaction.
Yes, exactly. But when you say no problem, you are actively minimizing the burden of the request.
Oh, I see.
You're telling the other person, do not feel any guilt for asking me to do this because it caused zero friction in my life. In a culture that hates imposing on others, no problem, is actually a highly empathetic phrase.
So it's not rude.
Not at all. It removes the guilt from the interaction. It just prioritizes community ease over, like, formal obligation.
That completely flips my perspective on it. It's essentially an anti-guilt mechanism.
Exactly.
Now, speaking of navigating friction, there is one phrase in the English toolkit that operates almost like an auditory turn signal.
Excuse me.
Oh, it is arguably the most versatile phrase in the entire language, specifically because of what it achieves psychologically.
It really is an auditory turn signal. I mean, you use a turn signal in a car to indicate you're about to change the flow of traffic so nobody crashes.
Yeah, right.
Excuse me. Does the exact same thing socially. You use it to get a waiter's attention, you use it before asking a stranger for directions, or you use it to physically navigate between people in a crowded aisle.
And what you're doing in all those scenarios is establishing a temporary bubble of permission.
A bubble of permission.
Yeah. By saying, excuse me, you are preemptively acknowledging that you are about to interrupt someone's physical space or cognitive focus, and that mere acknowledgement softens the intrusion. But what happens when the turn signal fails? Or, you forget to use it, you accidentally bump someone's shoulder, or you drop your bag on their foot.
Well, that is when you pivot from preemptive permission to retrospective mitigation.
Oh, it is.
A fast, immediate sorry or I'm sorry.
The timing there is what the materials really emphasize. It has to be immediate.
Instantaneous.
Right. So, excuse me, is for when you are about to do something, and sorry is for when the boundary has already been breached. A quick, acts as a social lubricant to prevent a minor physical collision from escalating into an actual social conflict.
So true.
Right.
So you've managed the greetings, you've politely navigated the physical space without imposing. But that often leads to a new, highly uncomfortable problem.
Oh, I know where you're going with this.
You are now sharing a space with a stranger.
The dreaded shared space.
Maybe you're waiting for a meeting to start, or standing at a bus stop, and the silence just becomes oppressive.
It's the pressure cooker of proximity. You can't just stare at the wall forever, but you also can't ask a stranger about their deepest childhood trauma.
No, definitely not.
So this is where the strategic deployment of small talk becomes essential. And I think a lot of people view small talk as a waste of breath, just meaningless filler.
Well, if you view it purely as information exchange, it is meaningless. But sociologically, small talk is a profound threat assessment tool.
Threat assessment.
Yeah, it's a low-stakes environment where two strangers can test the waters, establish a baseline of cooperation, and basically build a bridge of trust.
Which perfectly explains why the weather is the ultimate universally prescribed topic.
It is the perfect neutral third party.
Right, because it's a shared reality that you are both experiencing simultaneously, and it's constantly changing. So, nice weather today, isn't it? Or, it's a bit cloudy. You aren't exchanging meteorological data.
No, you're not reporting the news.
Exactly. You are pointing at a shared experience and demonstrating that you can agree on reality. It's a safe harbor. Another one the research points to, especially on a Monday morning, is the weekend.
Oh, classic.
How was your weekend? Is a completely non-invasive way to invite someone to share as much or as little as they want.
The key to these interactions is making immediate observations about your shared environment. But there is a crucial boundary you cannot cross here.
What's the boundary?
You must observe without complaining.
That is such a vital distinction.
It is.
Because if you're standing in a long line at a cafe saying, this coffee smells good, builds a positive bridge, but saying, this line is ridiculously long, isn't it? Might seem relatable, but it actually introduces negative friction.
Because complaining raises the stakes. It forces the other person to either agree with your negativity or awkwardly disagree. Small talk is supposed to be a pressure release valve, It's not a venue for introducing new stress.
So keep the observations light and agreeable.
Exactly. Keep it light.
During this phase, especially if you're clearly a visitor or new to the environment, you are inevitably going to face basic personal questions like, where are you from? Or what do you do?
Sure, that's out there.
The strategy recommended here is brevity. Keep it to, I'm a student or I work in an office. You really don't need to recite your resume.
Right.
But there is one specific question that acts as a pivot point for language learners. Do you speak English?
Oh, how you answer that question dictates the entire trajectory of the relationship.
Because the instinct, especially if you're nervous and you fear making a mistake, is to protect yourself by saying no. Just shut it down.
Totally understandable.
But the materials we're reviewing are adamant. You must say yes a little, even if you are absolutely terrified.
Because when you say no, you are doing more than just assessing your vocabulary level. Pragmatically, you are slamming the door.
Wow.
You are signaling to the native speaker that they shouldn't even bother attempting to connect with you. But saying yes a little is a signal of intent.
A signal of intent.
It tells the other person, look, I might struggle, but I am willing to cooperate and treat. And native speakers are incredibly forgiving of grammatical errors if they perceive that you are making a good faith effort to connect.
It establishes instant goodwill. So let's say you're building that goodwill. You know the unwritten rules of the greeting, the politeness, the small talk. But maintaining that connection in real time is exhausting if you're still manually assembling sentences in your head.
Oh, the cognitive load of translating word by word is exactly what causes that robotic, hesitant rhythm. To truly cross the uncanny valley and sound natural, you had to fundamentally change the architecture of how you process the language.
And the solution to that cognitive overload is learning in chunks, right?
Yes, chunks.
Stop viewing English as a giant bucket of individual words that you have to stitch together with grammar rules on the fly. Native speakers don't do that.
No, they definitely don't.
They use pre-assembled phrases or chunks like, that's a good point, or, you know what I mean, or let me see.
And by retrieving a whole phrase as a single unit, you completely bypass the brain's grammar engine.
Which saves so much time.
Exactly. You don't have to pause to calculate if it should be in, on, or at. You just deploy the chunk, which frees up your mental RAM to focus on the actual human connection.
And nested within these chunks are specific conversational tools, everyday filler words.
These are fascinating to me because they often have no direct translation, but they completely alter the pragmatic weight of a sentence.
You really do.
Let's look at the mechanics of a few. Take the word actually. It isn't just a synonym for in reality, it's a highly specialized tool for polite correction.
Right.
If someone says, you prefer coffee, right? A blunt, no, I prefer tea can feel like a verbal slap.
It's very abrupt. But framing it as, actually, I prefer tea, acts as a face-saving device. It softens the contradiction and signals that you aren't attacking their assumption, you're merely updating it. Then you have the softeners, right? Like, kind of and sort of. Saying, I am tired, is a heavy, absolute statement that demands a reaction. But saying, I'm kind of tired, diffuses the weight. It makes the statement way less aggressive.
Gives everyone a little breathing room.
Yeah. We also use transition words to manage the flow of traffic in a conversation. By the way, is how you smoothly merge a completely new topic into the current lane without causing a jar.
And its counterpart, anyway, acts as a boundary marker.
Anyway, is incredibly powerful. It is the polite way to signal that a tangent is over, or that you need to wrap up the interaction entirely, like, anyway, I should let you get back to work.
It's the perfect exit strategy.
It is. Then there's the real-time editing tool. I mean, if you start a sentence too harshly like, the movie was terrible,
Yeah.
you can deploy, to instantly backtrack and recalibrate. It wasn't my favorite.
Now, here's the thing. A lot of highly proficient learners actively avoid these words.
Well, I can understand why. If you take a formal writing class or public speaking training, you are relentlessly trained to eliminate filler words.
Right.
There's this perception that saying kind of or anyway or I mean in a professional setting like a boardroom makes you sound hesitant, unconfident, or unpolished.
But that is a fundamental misunderstanding of spoken versus written language. In a written essay, yes, absolutely eliminate them. But in spoken English, these words are not hesitations. They are emotional intelligence markers.
Oh, I love that. They're features, not bugs.
Absolutely features. They modulate tone. They signal to the listener how to interpret the information. If you strip all of these softeners, transition words, and hedges out of your speech in an attempt to sound professional, you achieve the exact opposite.
You sound like a robot.
You sound remarkably blunt, overly demanding, and fundamentally robotic. You strip the humanity out of the interaction. These fillers are the shock absorbers that keep the conversation from rattling apart.
So when we pull all of this together, what does it actually mean for you as you step out into an English-speaking environment? The journey from textbook proficiency to true natural fluency isn't about memorizing more obscure vocabulary.
No, not at all.
It's about mastering the pragmatic mechanics we've explored today.
It's about understanding that a greeting is a rhythm, not just a time on a clock, and that good night is a boundary line you don't cross on arrival.
Right. It's recognizing the deep psychological empathy embedded in saying, no problem, and using, as your auditory turn signal to navigate the world without imposing.
Yeah.
It's knowing how to use the weather to build a bridge of trust in the suffocating silence of an elevator, and having the courage to signal your cooperation by saying, yes, a little.
And finally, it's about relieving your brain's cognitive load by using chunks and embracing the messy, vital filler words that add nuance, softness, and humanity to your speech.
This hidden curriculum is what builds true confidence. Whether you're navigating a bustling local market or commanding a high-stakes corporate meeting, these unwritten rules are the difference between causing friction and creating connection. You are no longer just decoding data. You are finally playing the music.
But, digging into all this leaves us with a much deeper, almost philosophical implication about the nature of language learning itself.
I always appreciate a final thought to ponder. Where does this leave us?
Consider the internal friction that happens when your native culture clashes with these unwritten English rules.
Okay.
If you come from a culture that values absolute directness or views discussing the weather with a stranger as profoundly superficial, adopting these English scripts is going to feel very unnatural at first.
Oh, absolutely.
But because language and thought are so deeply intertwined, a fascinating shift occurs. When you continually engage in this polite friction, when you practice softening your statements, minimizing impositions, and building bridges through small talk, are you merely translating your thoughts? Or does the act of speaking this way fundamentally shift your personality? How much does adapting to these unwritten rules actually alter your worldview when you step into your English-speaking self? It's something to seriously consider the next time you ask a stranger, "How was your weekend?"
That is an incredibly provocative question to leave on. The language we choose to speak might just actively shape the person we become while we speak it. Keep that idea close the next time you navigate the uncanny valley. Thank you for taking this deep dive with us.